Yeah, a little bit.
No, you don't, because then you see the vent. You want to see, then bring it back a little bit. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Is that too far back now, Zach?
No, I can see him. I can see him just fine.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, just gonna do a quick intro here, Bernie, and then we'll get going.
Yeah.
Welcome to episode 2 of My Dad Used to Play Hockey. And even though it is episode 2, I'm talking to number 1, literal number 1. Let me give you some career stats here before I introduce my next guest. 608 games played, 271 wins, 198 losses, 121 ties, 55 shutouts, 2.55 goals against average, a 2-time Vezina, a 2-time Conn Smythe winner, a 5-time All-Star, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1984, and the 1977 winner of the Class Guy Award. Welcome, Bernie Perrant. Hey, Bernie, how's it going?
Lord. Thank you. Thank you. Great introduction. I could listen to you all night, man. Yeah.
I had to take a breath. I had to take a breath halfway through. You're a goalie, and I didn't play hockey as much as my dad did, obviously, and certainly wasn't nearly as successful doing it. I played a bit in high school, but even in the 2.5 years that I played, I came to realize quite quickly goalies are weird, and you're weird, Bernie. Are all your brethren like you?
Yeah, you have. You know, I admit you have to be a little bit crazy to play that position, but you know, thank God, Charles Plant from Montreal Canadiens, you know, a long time ago, came up with the mask, and that's saved most of us. You know, really helped. Really helped. That's for sure. Yeah.
So I have to ask you, you got interested. Did you get interested in playing goaltender, or my first soccer team, or the first few soccer teams that I played? Soccer was more my sport. The goalie was the person who was least in shape and the slowest. So, I don't think that they wanted to play goaltender. It was just kind of their default position. Was it something that you sought out, or is it something that kind of was just, well, if you want to be on the ice, this is what you got to do?
Yeah. Well, when I was 13, 14, okay, I wanted to be a defenseman. So I dressed up, you know, the skates, the equipment on. And in those days in Montreal, you had outdoor rinks. And then, you know, during training camp, each player had to go around the ice, outdoor rinks, around the ice once. And depending on his time that would take him, then the coach would give him a position. Well, most players did theirs in 13, 14, anywhere between 13 and 14 seconds. So my time came, right? And I stepped on the ice. I went around the ice, right? And I did mine in 21 seconds. So obviously I couldn't skate too good. So the coach looked at me and he said, "Goaltender." I said, "Sure." You know, but I had never played goal with skates on. And the skates I had, to all fairness, now the skates I had in those days were forward skates, and you know they're shaped like I don't know how I can describe this shape. They're not flat. You know, today the goalies, the skates are the blades are flat, so it gives you a better balance.
Right.
So I got in goal the first game, and I believe they scored like 22 goals against me. So the coach looked at me and said, "Out of here," you know, and that was my introduction to goaltending. But you know what? I said in those days, remember that's a long time ago, and the ice in Montreal remained in the streets for 3 or 4 months because they didn't have the chemicals in. So I decided to practice because we played straight hockey all the time. So I figured I'll practice with the skates on. And 5 weeks later, think about this, his goaltender got hurt. So he called me because he saw me practice with the skates on. And he asked me if I would give it one more chance. I said, sure. And we won the game 3-2. And then I was on my way.
So you went from 22 goals allowed to 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, well, the first time I played for him, I never played with skates on. So I was off balance all the time. So it was very very difficult to make the saves.
And at that point, were goaltenders, when you were playing then, were goaltenders wearing masks?
No, but look at
That's insane.
myself. The but you know what? I played a couple of years. And when I turned about 15, 16, and my dad, that's when just about the same time that Plant came out with the mask. And from Montreal, I keep mentioning his name. He was a famous goalie for Montreal, and that's when he came out with the mask. And my dad said, "If you want to play goal, you have to wear a mask." And thank God he made me wear a mask. And by the way, that mask was good at the time because every time they score a goal, I would blame the mask anyway. So,
so that was it's funny, especially now that we're talking about mask wearing. It's got a whole different meaning in 2021. But when Jacques Plante, when he first started wearing the mask, I've always been curious about this. Was it like finally all goaltenders rejoiced? Finally, we have this protection on our face. Or were there a lot of players that were resistant to it because it's like, I don't need a mask. I don't need a stupid mask. I've been fine without it. And why would I start wearing one now?
Sure. Well, a lot of goalies, National Hockey League, just to mention a few, Glenn Hull, conversely, Sawchuk at the beginning. A lot of guys that didn't wear a mask. And, for that reason, why wear a mask? It would interfere with my vision and the whole bit. And I think in those days, the problem was you just put a mask on. But as I got older, with the started playing for Niagara Falls, for an example, and which was a farm team, Boston Bruins. Then in those days, then they put plaster on your face inside of your eye socket, so to make sure that the mask would fit your face properly. And then that really made a big difference because your vision was so much better.
You mentioned that you played for Niagara Falls, which was a Boston Bruins farm team, because before you were a Boston Bruin. I think even a lot of diehard Flyers fans, you're so wrapped up in the historic nature of the Broad Street Bully team that made their name by beating the great Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito and the Boston Bruins team. And a few years before, you were actually a member of that team. I don't think a lot of people know that you played for the enemy. Yeah.
Well, I when I was 17, I got drafted by the Bruins, the Boston Bruins. Okay, and there were only 6 teams then in the league, and Boston was in last place, and they picked me. So I went to. I shared this with people because it's a great story, because you have to face fear in life at times if you want to move on and do things that you want to do. If you don't face fear, you're going to live the same way the rest of your life. So I went to Niagara Falls. Think about this. I couldn't speak English. I took my suitcase, got on the train by myself, and I went to Niagara Falls. Think about this. It was it was a scary time, but at the same time, my vision was always to play in the National Hockey League. And when you have a vision, you're willing to do anything to reach that vision, and it turned out good for me.
So how did you pick up the language? How did you start speaking English? I mean, it obviously became a necessity.
Well, you know what? I got there. I was about 165 pounds, young at the time, right? And I ended up 145 pounds. So I had to learn 45, right? I had to learn how to ask for food. And then it worked out pretty good. Yeah.
How long before you felt like you became fluent? That must have been, because I imagine you wouldn't have a translator around with you. You kind of just had to pick up words here and there and sort of try to respond to them in context.
Yeah, well, the old days when we played, we stayed at a very good family house, and the team would provide a location for us. And I had a good friend of mine by the name of Gilles Marat, who played for Boston, and played for different teams. Good, big, strong defenseman, and from Montreal. And Gilles could, from the west side of Montreal, so Gilles could speak English real well. So he really helped me to come around and learn the language a little bit, so I could function in life. It was a big help there.
Let's just flash forward a little bit to to your time that people know you for, your time as a Broad Street Bully, your time as a Philadelphia Flyer. Your role in that with that team is so fascinating to me, because the rest of the team was known as skilled but fierce, brutal, a bully. And that didn't really need to be part of your game. Goalies weren't expected really to be an intimidator, to go out there and be an enforcer, to bring down the other team's biggest guy. What was it like being a Broad Street Bully without the sort of pressure to get out there and drop the gloves?
It was fantastic. You know what? I had some tough defensemen. We have mentioned earlier, we had Dave Schultz, Bob Kelly, and Van Imp, defense. So if somebody would give me a shot or something, he paid a big price in those days. Because in those days, you could hit somebody in front of the net. Today the game has changed; it's different. But that's something that, in a way, that helped me, because all I had to do was concentrate on my game. My style, my anticipation. If it's a left-hand shot coming down, if it's a right-hand shot, how to play the players, how to play your defenseman. Because I always told the defenseman, play the man, and I'll play the shot. So if it's a right-hand shot, more likely 9 out of 10 times it would go my left side. And if it's a left-hand shot, 9 out of 10 times it would go in this blocker. So once your anticipation works well, then you work with your defenseman. It really helps you to make the saves.
And was there ever a time that someone hit you and you just thought, "Oh man, that was such a mistake. Oh, I almost feel bad for you right now because my entire team is going to come after you"?
I didn't have to say it. It happened right away. With a guy with Van Imp, and somehow Eddie knew how to steer the player, the players, and it happened. And Eddie was on the ice at that time, and he took care of that player, and never set that player in front of the net again.
You are part of arguably the most iconic team in Philadelphia history. I don't even know if it's arguably. And it came at a time when Philly was really struggling. And Philly's a brutal, brutal fan base. Even more so now. It doesn't get kinder. It's just they're hardcore fans. And suddenly they have this new sport, relatively new sport to the area. They'd only been around for 5 or 6 years. And a bunch of Canadians, and yet somehow, the power of winning just won over this city's heart. What did you feel it happening as it was happening even before you got the cup? Were you like, you know what, we're kind of starting to own this city?
Oh yeah. Well, at the beginning, the first year when all the players got drafted in 1967, they put us on the float on Broad Street in Philly downtown to introduce us to the crowd, right? And we had more people on the float than we had watching us, because nobody knew about the team. But the one thing we learned, with all the players, the organization, for that matter, and is we made sure that we could socialize with the people off the ice. We did different promotions and stuff like this, and then we became one big family. And that's one thing you learn. You learn when you play sports, which it helps you down the road as you get older. If you want to succeed in life, it's very important to share this. If you want to succeed in life, you have to be part of a team. have to be part of a good team, and because you can't succeed by yourself. Even guys like Orr, Gretzky, you put them on the ice all by themselves, they're not going to win anything. So they had to be surrounded. Although they were great players, they had to be surrounded by a good team, to win championships. And in addition to the team, then we built that togetherness with the crowd, like you said, and we had in those days of the Spectrum, we had 17,007, and the crowd, after a while, 7 years in existence, we won the Stanley Cup, and but before that, during the season, the crowd was you just couldn't wait for a hockey game to be played in Philly. They were just incredible, and it's just like a performer. If you get on the stage and you have a good crowd reacting to you, it's going to elevate you to a different level, and that's what the crowd did in Philly.
And does that work for you as a goalie too? Do you feed off the crowd's energy?
Oh yeah, of course. If you you happen to make a good save, which it happened once in a while, and make a good save, and then you get the reaction of the whole crowd. That elevates you. And it gets you in that mode. When you feel good, when you feel positive in life, you have good reaction from the crowd. It helps you a lot more to succeed.
And while you were loved in Philly by that 17,000 every time you played, anytime you got on a bus or a plane to go somewhere else, you were hated. Did you like that?
Yeah. They, what? It's if they, our philosophy is they hate you two ways. They could hate you because we were tough, number one, but number two, they wanted their home team to beat us. And we were good. We were a good team, and we won a lot of games on the road. So like for me anyway, the approach was the more they hate us, it's because the more we're playing better. The better we're playing, and it's a good sign. If I remember, think about this: when we played the Rangers against the Rangers in New York, okay, they had a crowd like we did in Philly, and it was just incredible. Even as uh, a player from Philly playing against the Rangers in New York, the noise of the crowd, the reaction of the crowd when you made a save, it was a different sound, but it was a sound, that made the save. But and I always had my best games on the road in New York. I think in 15 years in my career, every game I played in New York, I ended up with an average of 2 goals against for all those years, right? And an average of 45 shots a game. Then on the other side of the coin is Detroit, for an example. You played in the old Olympia, right? And people had ties on, suits. The place was real calm, okay, and real quiet. And I think my goals against for all those years was 7 goals a game. Even my own players would bet against me how long I would last during the game. So the excitement of the crowd really makes a big difference.
So let's talk about now then the first cup. Because I was reading about you, and again, this doesn't surprise me about you knowing what I know. But there's the iconic Gene Hart call, legendary Flyers broadcaster, as the clock is ticking down, and he's just yelling, "The Flyers are going to win it. They're going to win the Stanley Cup." And I was reading that you were actually looking up at the clock, right? And Bobby Orr sent a Hail Mary down to the net. Yeah. And you admitted that you weren't paying attention, and if that shot had been on goal, it would have been a goal.
I don't think we would be talking right now. Of course, we had a face-off. I think it was like 10 seconds or 8 seconds left in the game. Imagine this: the sixth game at home, 6 seconds to go, right? 6, 7 seconds. A face-off in their zone. And the crowd is all standing up and cheering, that's they let's go Flyers and the whole bit, and we're all pumped. And they had to face off, and the puck went right away to Bobby Orr. Okay, and at the same time, I look at the clock, and that's when he shot the puck all the way down the ice, right? and then by the time I looked down, the puck had reached behind the net, and hit the boards, missed the net by about a foot, and stayed behind the net, and then the time, it was the end of the game, and then we won the Stanley Cup, and you know what? When I think about that moment, I'm so grateful that what life is beautiful when you have a vision, you have a passion for something. Beautiful things happen, and it really happened because if it hits the net, then it's a goal. And it was just it's just crazy. Yeah.
So in somewhere, if you believe in like alternate universes, somewhere
Yes.
Bobby Orr scored.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Put it in. And maybe you get shipped off to the California Golden Seals the next year.
What do you mean? Hey, what do you mean, maybe?
But it didn't go in. So
No.
I can't relive those, those last few seconds.
And
enough.
You know what? And I'm still, still scraping the ice. I'm not jumping because it's so winning the Stanley Cup against Boston, like you said, Bobby Orr, Esposito, and those guys are just. I still didn't believe it when the referee blew the nose and blew the whistle, and then the players, everybody jumped on the ice, and then I realized, hey, we won. It's a beautiful thing, winning a championship, like this against a team like Boston, and we won 1-0. Think about this: 1-0. It's not like we didn't have 3 or 4 goals. It was only 1 goal, and it just when you look back at this, sure, as a goalie, you have a job to do, but it's at the same time, the whole team, the coaching staff, and the crowd really made it happen.
And we're going to talk about your coach coming up here, but I still. The moment we all see the public celebration, I think the Stanley Cup is the greatest trophy in sports, and I love watching the team pass it around, and we see that public celebration. What I'm always very interested in, though, is when you get back to the locker room, when the cameras are off, when it's just the guys who have put their bodies on the line for the entire season. What are those moments like? Are they quieter? Are you just so full of adrenaline that it's just a nonstop party for the next couple of days? Take us to the locker room.
Yeah, you know what? After you win the cup, you get in. We skated around the ice with Larky holding the Stanley Cup and the team behind us. And by the way, we then we have Dave Schultz skating in front of us because in those days, remember, the glass along the boards were only 3 feet high, I think, or 2 feet high, whatever.
Right.
So everybody jumped on the ice and celebration. Now we got in the dressing room. There must have been, my God, 50, 60, maybe 75 people in the dressing room. And you had a little bit of, you're holding the cup as one player, each player did this. And then you have a little bit of a sip from the cup. But there were so many people. But I have to share this quickly. Let's move up 1 year. The following year, one would beat Buffalo, 2-0, right? And again, think about this: it was 1-0 for with 2 minutes left in the game, and then Bill Clement scored the second goal.
Right.
But with the reason I mention this is because we had the small celebration. We skated around the ice with the Stanley Cup. And then we went this dressing room, celebrated. Then we got on the plane, a charter plane, back to Philly. And what they did, the difference with the first cup and second cup was they put the Stanley Cup in the middle of the aisle on the plane. And for about 10, 15 minutes, nobody said anything. All we did, we look at that beautiful trophy that we had just won, as a team. And what a wonderful beautiful time, that 15 minutes. I'll never forget the rest of my life. Beautiful thing.
Yeah. And then, as things often always do, you eventually the dynasty had to end, where the Montreal Canadiens came in and, they kind of ushered in a different era of hockey, but you still continue to have a tremendously successful career after that. What is it like when you have such a tight-knit group of people to all of a sudden start to see, my dad was traded soon after. What is it? How do you deal with all the new faces and all the friends you have to say goodbye to?
Well, it's a you know what? It's very difficult to do because your dad. We were and we are good friends. Although we live different parts of the country and we don't see each other that much. But great individual and good leader off and on the ice. Great individual, and I could see why and I know why you're proud of your dad. The way he handled himself as a human being, as a player. It was incredible. But it's just like life is that way in general. People come into your life and people leave, just like you come into their lives and you leave too. And but the one thing situations like this can take away from us is those memories that we have when we won those and we worked hard. We won those two championship, which is just in good. We were one big family, a beautiful thing.
There's two more things I want to talk about that family because this all happened before I was born, and yet I still.
Of course, you're only 15 years old, right?
I'm a very young person. But it's still the seeing and having experienced it vicariously through my dad and seeing how important so many of those guys are is again a reflection. And Dave Schultz was my first guest last week, Bernie, and we were talking a bit about the quotes. Fred Shiro was like a quote machine, like the Oscar Wilde of NHL coaches, and the one that sort of brought up the last question, and I talked to Dave about this too, that still gets me, even though it wasn't my team, it was my dad's team. Win today and we'll walk together forever.
Yeah.
And you won that day, and it's so storybook. It's like, of course, all these people are still in touch with each other all of these many years later.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And a lot came from Fred Shero, the coach, at the time. And Fred was a very student of the game, very good, a good coach. But also, he had a system, and we practice, and quickly here we practice inside of our blue line. We shoot the puck from the red line, and we all have to retrieve, and we had 4 different ways to come out. And we would practice 45 minutes, 45 minutes every day, every practice. And so when the game, so we had 4 different ways to come out. And when somebody, they would shoot the puck behind the net, whatever, there's no pressure because we knew exactly we had 4 different ways to come out. And it was awesome. But also having a system like this, offensively, you had a system too. But Freddie made sure to tell the guys if you have a chance to create a 2-on-1, okay, now forget the system and take advantage of it, and it really made a big difference. So we had the freedom of, if you were in that situation, to make it happen. And Freddie, if you had if you had something to say about a player, which is not too often, instead of criticizing the player in front of the whole team in the dressing room, he would bring the player in his dressing room. I mean, in his room, and he would say what he had to say, and then that was the end of it. So we respected him, we loved him, and he was a fantastic leader. Yeah.
I rattled off a bunch of awards that you received over your career, and a lot of them 2-time Vezina. It makes sense. 2-time Conn Smythe, that makes sense. Of course, you were an all-star. One that stuck out for me because I can't. It seems like an odd award for Philadelphia specifically to give out. In 1977, you won the Class Guy Award, which best exemplified a strong rapport with the media.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was that always something that was important to you? Because that's not always the case with professional athletes, that whether or not they care, they're good with the media or not. Was that something that was important to you, or was that something that, either Ed Snyder made sure his players were, or something that Fred Shiro maybe imparted upon you as like, you need to be good to the people covering this game?
Yeah, it's very, you brought up a good point here. It's very, very important to socialize with those people, which we did, and we always had great stories for those guys. In those days, life was different, but we had those good stories. They trusted us, and we trusted them. So we could, the beauty we had, the association we had, rapport we had with those people was just incredible. For and at times you would share something, and you would tell the guy, "Well, I'm going to share this with you, but you can't put this out. Keep this to yourself."
Mm-hmm.
And you could, yeah, and there was a trust factor between the those people and us, the players, and that was a beautiful thing. And you know what, there's not one time that we share something that was just a one-on-one that came out. You know what I'm saying? There's just the association. So it goes back to what I said earlier. We had the team, okay, and the big family, beautiful family, and we had the fans, and we had the media on our side too, which is that's a good point you brought up. Very, very important.
Let's talk a little bit about something that I unexpectedly talked to Dave Schultz with last week. Dave is still battling alcoholism, mm-hmm. and is now come to terms with it and is seeking treatment. Mm-hmm. And this is something that you've spoken on quite a bit. And congratulations, by the way. Sobriety is tough. And,
thank you.
But you were bad for a while.
In terms
of the alcohol. Why? How did that start becoming such a dominant force in your life?
When we played, you had the pressure of the game to control your drinking. Especially on the road. You have 22 guys, you're on the road, then you go to a bar and whatever. In those days, I'm talking about, 40 some years ago, 45, 46 years ago, and maybe even more, a little bit close to 50. It's a long time ago. Life was different then. And we believe, again, as a family, we went to a bar, went to a place, all the players were there. And, we had a good time. And I got to a point where the night before the game, you had to be careful because of the game. But once the game was over, you didn't have to be careful anymore. And it's just that it got to a point with me. The problem was when I got hit in the eye. That ended my career. And then I came out. I was blind for both eyes, for that matter, because it affected the left eye too. So for 2 weeks, I was in darkness, okay, in the hospital. And finally, doctors kept saying, "We just have to wait. We just have to wait." It was a terrible time in my life, those 2 weeks. And then finally, one morning, I woke up and started to see a little bit of light, And the doctor said, "You're on your way back." So thank God I did. And then after that, and I didn't know what to do in life, because I wasn't prepared to get involved in the world of business. And you become depressed, you're down because you're used to performing in front of a big crowd, and then it stops, And I had a problem, and alcohol became my good friend, because then makes you, a different person, and then it became a major problem. And then I decided, to join the program, and that's it changed my whole life. But having said that, again, think about the comparison here with the program and the hockey team. When we won, we were a team. We didn't win by ourselves. So you get in program, for me anyway, I couldn't get sober by myself. I couldn't do it. But with the help of the program and the people in the program, I was able to do it one day at a time. And and I'm so grateful today. I have 42 years sobriety.
42 years. Wow.
Yeah, but the one thing that scares me is the when you think about this, it's scary in some ways. I'm one sip away from losing the whole thing. Think about this, one sip. So it's very important for me is people, places, and things. If I hang around the wrong people, I go to the wrong places, I do the wrong things. So it's very important.
Well, are there people in your life that are still, I'm not going to say pressuring you to drink, but would rather you share a beer with them? No.
When if I meet some people and they for an example, you do a promotion or whatever, and they have a drink and they say you want to have, you want something, then I'm upfront with people right away. And I tell them, hey, I don't drink, I'm in the program, but thank you. And because if I fake it, they'll keep coming back, keep coming back, and I may break down. But if I'm upfront with people, then they stop, they move on with different people, but I don't have the problem.
What was it? Was there a particular moment that made you realize I just got to cut this out entirely?
Well, yeah, it's just that let's face it, alcohol ruins a lot of families, and friendship with people or whatever, and I was getting. It's not that it ruined my family, but I was getting at that point where it became critical, and I am very fortunate that I met the right people, at the right place, and I went for the first 4 or 5 years every night. I went to a meeting every night. That's that's what I needed, and I had the people to pick me up at times, to remind me I have to go, go to the meetings, and it really helped me. And today I'm very, very grateful. That's the word to use in life, be grateful. And I'm very, very grateful to have 42 years.
And congratulations again on that.
Thank you.
It seems as though players today that I've spoken with they already have a post-game plan, and whether it's their agents, whether it's the league, whether it's the organization they're working for, all seem to be from the first moment they put on skates, put on cleats, whatever it is, are getting ready for the day that they will no longer be able to play this game for now ridiculous amounts of money. But did you have anything like that? That seems to me to be something rather new, where there are people who are actually concerned about an athlete's post-game life. And
in those days, you it's not like today. You said the magic words. The players. First of all, when we played, the money wasn't even close to what they're making now. So
I know.
Yeah. So I think as they're playing today with the big money, let's say somebody's making $8 million a year, you start as you're performing throughout your career. You have hopefully you have the right people to guide you to what to do with your money and your investments and things like this, to prepare yourself for when it's over. In the old days, you didn't think about this. In the old days, you played your game, you played the season. I'd be going down the shore. I love fishing. I had a boat, a 42-foot boat, and went offshore and did a lot of fishing. And then when the September came, then you went right back to a training camp, and that was the life that I lived in those days. But we didn't have, the people to guide us, because nobody would hang around us because we didn't make enough money to hang around us.
Yeah. And then I just want to get your opinion on some of the things that you see in today's game. One of something that strikes me when I watch old footage of you playing, or any goalies of that era, is your pads were small. And now it's like the Stay Puff Marshmallow Man in net. Do you think that can you imagine yourself in today's game being able to wear the sort of padding that they do? What would your goals against average be like today?
It's very difficult. In those days, think about this. You look at the equipment, the glove, catching glove. You look at the catching glove they have today. I don't think they can even squeeze it. It's so big, But make a lot of saves with the gloves, And the thing that gets me, I put the equipment on about 3 years ago. The chest protector, the shoulders, the arms. I felt like a robot. I could barely move, But today, the players, let's face it, everybody's bigger, they're taller, stronger, and whatever. But in the old days, you look at the pads, for example. In the old days, you have the flexibility to move from left to right on your feet. Okay, you had the flexibility to turn your foot sideways to deflect a shot on the ice towards a corner. Okay, today they don't have this, and that's why you see all the goalies. I watch all the a lot of games. They all have the same pads, the same equipment, and they're all playing the same style. They drop to their knees, and they're good. Don't misunderstand me. I'm criticizing here a little bit from where I came from to where they're at now. It's got to be very, very difficult because the guy shoots automatically. You drop to your knees sideways like this, so you cover the shots on the ice, which is fine. But at the same time, when you do this, your pads are facing the front. So you're creating a rebound in front, which could be very dangerous. And I'll get back to the defenseman for a second. So it's very difficult. And then the way they're shooting today, it's incredible. Then if they have the catching glove low a little bit as they drop, then you see a lot of goals scored. Most of their goals are scored up high anyway. If you watch your games. So they have to because of the equipment. This is the style that they play today. So when we played, you made the save. That was the difference between the saves and blocking it. When we played, we made saves. What I mean by a save is you could control the rebounds to your defenseman or push the puck in the corner or something. Today, when they drop like this, it's almost like they're blocking it. Okay, and now I'll talk about the defenseman in a second. So they're blocking it. So when you're blocking the shot, then it goes back in front. Okay, now the style has changed in front of the net. It's not like the old days. The old days they pushed the guy around, and it was difficult to get a rebound because you got hit all the time. But in today's game, now I don't. You know what? The rule looks to me is you can't touch anybody in front of the net. So if you can't touch anybody in front of the net and you're blocking it, and the rebound goes in front, guess what? You're going to create a lot of opportunities for rebounds. And sometimes they have two rebounds, and then they'll put the puck in. So it's a different style today. Yeah. Very, very different style than when we played. I'm just that I played when I played.
Let's talk about the last time you played, which I think was the Winter Classic.
Yeah.
I was at that game, Bernie. There was before the actual game. There was the day before. There was a insanely well attended alumni game, and you started as goalie. I know that the game is mostly about fun and people being able to see players that they grew up watching and everything. But how competitive did you feel once you had those pads on?
Well, first of all, we played at I think it was the ballpark. Wasn't it the ballpark? I think we had like
Citizens Bank Park. Yep.
Yeah, we had 45,000 people.
A lot of people.
And you know what? The amazing part is when I step on the ice, I practice a little bit before, for a couple of weeks. And when I step on the ice, leading the team, and you have the crowd, everybody's cheering. And you know what? I felt like I did when we played, for God's sakes. And it had been, 30, 40 years ago. It was, just incredible. The feeling came back. It was just awesome. And so my approach was, I told the coaches, I said, I'll play 5 minutes, okay, and then I'm done. Because the reason I did it too was because when I left the game, I got hit in the eye with the hockey stick. Um, I had to, of course, I had to leave the game, and I never had a chance to step on the ice again and just as a goalie, and wave to the crowd. So I said, I'm going to do this, right? So I step on the ice, and the Rangers, we played the Rangers, and they were kind to me. Messier was playing, and and so so they were kind. I had a shutout going, didn't go no goals, and so I look at the clock again. Here we go. Think about this, just like the Bobby Orr story, right? I'm looking at the clock. Then I look down on the ice. There's about 6, 7 seconds to go, and my God, I forgot his name. They came
Ron
down
Greshner.
no, not Gressner.
No?
It was a French name. I forget his name. Duguay. Yeah,
Oh, Ron
Duguay.
Duguay. Thank you.
Thanks for your
Shady.
help. Duguay's coming down on the breakaway. I'm looking up, and and I say, God, what are you doing to me, for God's sake, right? And then Duguay, think about this. Duguay came in and shut on my pads on purpose. And the whole crowd stood up and cheered. I had the goosebumps just sharing this, right? And then I got up, then I looked at him and he gave me a big hug, right? And I said, why'd you do this? I knew, he shut on my pads on purpose. He said, my God, if I would have scored, there's no way I would have gotten out of Philly alive, for God's sakes, But but that was what a beautiful experience that was, to get one more chance to unite, reunite, I guess, with your fans in Philly. That was just a beautiful thing.
The legendary number one, Bernie Perrant. Only the Lord saves more than Bernie Perrant. I still think the greatest slogan in Philadelphia Flyers history.
Oh yeah. I came up with this. No, I'm just kidding. I want to share just a little story about your dad. In Buffalo, when the game again was 1-0, we had about 2 minutes to go in the game, and maybe 2.5 minutes, and he came down on the right side across the blue line, and I think it was Corrab and somebody else. They creamed them against the boards. And I told her that. I said, I'll never forget this. They creamed them. And you know what? That's what the team does. He took the beating to push the puck to Clement, who ended up on Roger Crozier on the breakaway and scored a goal. So think about this. The second Stanley Cup we won. Think about this. This is crazy, but it's true. Bob Kelly scored a winning goal, and Clement scored the second goal.
Yep.
Think about this. Yeah. So just to show you, but your dad was great leader, great teammates, great individual. Loved him. Yep.
He feels the same about you, Bernie. And so does the city of Philadelphia. Maybe there's some Boston fans that are still Perrant loyal. I don't know. We don't care in Philly, but you'll always be an absolute legend in the misnamed city of brotherly love. So thank you so much for coming on with me.
Thanks. One thing I want to say is, I have a place on the shore, and I have a 44-foot boat, sport fisherman. So when the time is right, I'd love to take you and your dad and a couple of friends to fishing offshore and have a good time.
I think that sounds.
By the way, my wife is from Italy, right? So the name of my boat used to be the French Connection. Guess what it is now? The Italian French Connection. I love you, buddy. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Bernie. So good to see you. We'll catch up again soon. And I never turned down a boat invitation, so I'll be there.